Let's paint a picture together. You're 75, maybe 80, still got your spirit, still got your spark. You've got grandkids who say you're the coolest gramps or nana they know. And today, you're headed out on a trip, maybe to visit family, maybe just a little adventure with old friends. The bag's packed. You're feeling brave, excited, alive. But here's what no one tells you: somewhere along that highway, or 35,000 feet in the air, or tucked into a hotel room bed that's not your own, something inside your body quietly starts to struggle. It's subtle at first, a bit of lightheadedness. Maybe your appetite disappears. You think, I'm just tired, or it's the change of scenery. But then the confusion kicks in. Your legs swell, your sleep disappears, you feel off. And by the time someone notices, you're already in trouble. Here's the truth most folks won't say out loud. Traveling in old age is not the same as it was at 40 or 50. It's not even close. Your body has changed. Your emotional world has changed. And those changes, they don't always play nice with stress, strange beds, or long hours on the road. But society keeps whispering, go, live a little, don't slow down. And you don't want to seem weak or dramatic or like you're ruining the fun. So you go. And what should have been a joyful experience becomes the very thing that sets off a health spiral. But what if I told you, it's not about avoiding travel altogether. It's about knowing the hidden risks, those quiet dangers that don't shout, but can still steal your strength and joy if you're not ready for them. Because growing older doesn't mean you stop living, but it does mean you have to live smarter. So here's the deal. By the end of this video, you're going to know the 5 biggest health and emotional risks seniors face when traveling, and why recognizing them now could protect you or someone you love from a life-altering mistake. I want you to stay safe. I want you to keep living and living well. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's talk about what no one else is saying. And hey, do me a favor, drop a comment below that says, "Watching from your country." Let's see how far this message of care and awareness can travel. And if you care about elderly wellness, if you want weekly wisdom that helps you care better, hit that subscribe button right now. You're watching ElderTalks Daily, where we speak love, truth, and protection into every year of aging life. Let me tell you about Mr. Jenkins. He was 78, sharp as a tack, full of stories, the kind of man who still wore a wristwatch and shined his shoes before stepping outside. His daughter lived 2 states away, just a short flight, barely 2 hours. He packed his carry-on, waved goodbye to the neighbor watering his lawn, and set off with nothing but good intentions and a smile. The trip was uneventful. A few jokes with the flight attendant, a little stiffness in the legs, but he figured that was normal. 3 days later, his daughter called 911. Mr. Jenkins couldn't move his left leg without pain. His calf had swollen and turned reddish purple. The ER doctor gave the verdict: deep vein thrombosis, a blood clot. You see, when you sit still for too long, especially in cramped seats where your legs barely move, the blood in your veins slows down. And in older adults, that slow-moving blood can start to pool and form clots. These clots are sneaky. They don't hurt at first, they don't announce themselves, but they can travel, sometimes to the lungs, where they become fatal. And here's what most people get wrong. They think, oh, it's just a short trip. What could go wrong? But it's not about the length of time. It's about what your body isn't doing during that time, moving. The older we get, the less forgiving the body becomes. Blood vessels stiffen, circulation weakens. A 2-hour drive can be just as dangerous as a long-haul flight if you don't take the right steps. So here's what you do. Set a reminder on your phone or watch. Every 30 minutes, stand up. Even just a minute of walking can make a world of difference. Wear compression socks. Yes, they're snug, but they support blood flow and reduce your risk of clotting. Stay hydrated. Dehydration thickens the blood, making clots even more likely. Sip water regularly, even if you're not thirsty. These might seem like small things, but when your body is aging, the smallest things are often the most powerful. Because the goal isn't to stop living, it's to keep living wisely. And blood clots, they're just the beginning. Because while they strike the legs, our next hidden risk strikes somewhere far more vulnerable: the heart and mind. Let's talk about that next. Now close your eyes for a moment and picture this. Your mother, she's always been sharp. The one who remembers birthdays before you do. The one who cracks a joke at just the right time. She's the heart of every family gathering. You all convince her to come along on a weekend getaway. Just a little escape. New scenery, fresh air, something different. You expect smiles, laughter, that usual spark. But by day 2, something shifts. She's quieter, not herself. She keeps asking what day it is, forgets where she left her bag. Twice. She sits in the corner while the rest of you chat. When you ask her if she's okay, she just shrugs and says she's tired. But you feel it. Something's off. That's emotional disorientation. And for many seniors, it's a hidden danger of travel that no one warns you about. You see, seniors don't just rely on routine for comfort. They depend on it for stability. Their brains, their moods, even their physical health are tied to familiar sights, sounds, smells, and rhythms. So when that routine is shaken, even by something as fun as a vacation, it can throw off more than just their sleep. It can lead to confusion. It can trigger sadness. And for some, it can even speed up mild cognitive decline. Now here's the big misunderstanding. We assume vacations are fun for everyone. We think we're doing something good, and you are. Your heart is in the right place. But for many older adults, especially those already experiencing subtle memory changes or emotional sensitivity, being in an unfamiliar place doesn't feel like an adventure. It feels like being lost. So how do you protect your loved one without locking them away from the world? Start small. Limit travel to familiar places. Somewhere they've been before, somewhere their brain already knows. Bring comfort items from home, a favorite blanket, a photo of grandkids on the nightstand, their usual brand of tea. Small things can make unfamiliar places feel less overwhelming. And most importantly, watch, don't assume. If you see them withdrawing, don't just write it off as fatigue. Gently ask how they feel. Give them room to talk, because emotional health matters just as much as physical health, and sometimes it's even easier to miss. But speaking of subtle changes, what happens when the body's internal rhythm falls apart? Let's talk about the next hidden risk, one that creeps in at night when everyone else is asleep. Let's shift to something that most people dismiss with a shrug. Sleep. You know how it goes. You check into a hotel. The mattress is different. The room is too warm or too cold. Street noise leaks through the window. You wake up groggy, maybe a little irritable, but you brush it off. Now imagine that happening to someone whose sleep was already fragile before the trip. Someone in their 70s or 80s. Someone who already wakes up multiple times a night to use the bathroom, or because of joint pain, or simply because their circadian rhythm isn't what it used to be. That small disruption for you, for them, it can spiral. Ms. Helen is a perfect example. She was 80, excited to visit her granddaughter out of town. First time flying in years. They stayed up late chatting and laughing the first night. But by the second night, Ms. Helen wasn't herself. She couldn't fall asleep. She couldn't stay asleep. And during the day, she was sluggish, snappy, and dazed. Her daughter thought she was just tired. But in reality, her body's internal clock, what doctors call the circadian rhythm, had been knocked completely out of sync. You see, the aging body doesn't bounce back like it used to. A new time zone, irregular meal times, bright lights late at night, unfamiliar noises. These things confuse the body more than you'd think. And when sleep gets disrupted, everything else suffers. Mood, memory, immunity, even blood pressure. Now here's where it gets dangerous. Most families notice the irritability or forgetfulness, but they don't trace it back to sleep. They assume grandma's just moody, or maybe she's starting to lose it. But the truth is, poor sleep can mimic early dementia symptoms, and without correcting the cause, it only gets worse. So what can you do? First, stick to familiar sleep routines, even while traveling. Same bedtime, same wind-down habits. Avoid screen time and bright lights in the evening. Use soft lamps. Bring their favorite book instead of turning on the TV. And whenever possible, avoid major time zone changes. If it must happen, arrive early so they have time to adjust slowly. Sleep isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. And for our elders, one bad night can echo for days. But what if it's not sleep that's off? What if there's something more serious happening beneath the surface? Something you can't see. Something your loved one mistakes for just indigestion? Let's talk about the next hidden risk, one that can be quiet but deadly. All right, now let's talk about something most people never expect to happen while traveling, a medical emergency that doesn't look like one. Let me introduce you to Mr. Raymond. He was 82, a gentle soul, loved crossword puzzles, never missed a Sunday paper. He went on a cruise with his old Army buddies, just 5 days at sea. On the second night, he complained of a little pressure in his chest. Not pain, just tightness. Maybe it was the buffet, he said. A little heartburn. He took an antacid and went to bed. By morning, he couldn't speak clearly. He collapsed before they could call the ship's doctor. They airlifted him off the boat. Turned out he'd had a silent heart attack, the kind that gives you no classic warning signs. No dramatic pain, no clutching the chest, just quiet pressure. Here's what you need to know. Seniors don't always feel pain the same way younger people do. Years of medications, aging nerves, or existing health conditions can dull the signals. So while a younger adult might feel stabbing pain during a heart attack, an older person might just feel fatigue, nausea, dizziness. They might think they've got food poisoning, or that they're just tired from the trip. But underneath, their body is waving a red flag. And this isn't just about heart attacks. Strokes in older adults often start with confusion, imbalance, or slurred speech. Things families may write off as jet lag or sleepiness. Infections can show up as sudden personality changes, not fevers. That's why traveling amplifies the risk, because everyone is out of routine, and those subtle signs are easier to ignore. No one wants to sound the alarm when you're supposed to be having fun, but silence is dangerous, so here's what to do. Before any trip, make sure their medical information is written down and accessible. Medications, allergies, doctor's contact. Keep a copy on your phone and a printed version in your bag. If something feels off, don't wait. Don't second guess. Ask questions. Get it checked out, even if it seems small. And this one's big. Wear a medical alert bracelet. It can save precious minutes in an emergency, especially when no one else knows their health history. Travel isn't a break from health. It's when you need to be most aware. Because when something's wrong, your loved one might not be able to tell you directly. You've got to know what to look for. But even if all the signs are caught and everything goes smoothly, there's one more risk, one that doesn't hit during the trip, but after. Let's talk about the emotional crash that often comes once the bags are unpacked and the house is quiet again. Now this last one, it's the one people rarely talk about. There's no dramatic fall, no emergency room visit, no visible symptom, but it hits hard, and it usually hits when no one's around to notice. I'm talking about post-trip depression, that deep emotional slump that can creep in once the suitcases are back in the closet. The house goes quiet again, and all the excitement is over. Let me tell you about Clara. She was 76, widowed, lived alone but managed just fine. Her grandkids surprised her with a weekend at the beach, her favorite place from her younger days. They laughed, they played cards at night, they ate fish by the water. She looked alive in a way her family hadn't seen in months. But when she returned home, something changed. She stopped answering phone calls, stopped going on her morning walks, started skipping meals. At first, her daughter thought she just needed rest. But Clara didn't bounce back. Why? Because for many older adults, a short burst of joy can highlight just how empty the day-to-day really feels. The contrast between being surrounded by love and then suddenly being alone again can create a kind of emotional whiplash. Younger people bounce between those highs and lows more easily, but for seniors, it can feel like being dropped into a void. One minute they're laughing in a room full of people, the next they're staring at a quiet living room with no one to talk to. And here's the heartbreaking part. Families don't always notice. They think, she had such a great time. She must feel refreshed. But inside, she feels lonelier than before. So what can we do? Plan for the after. Don't just plan the trip. Plan what happens once they return. Set up visits, phone calls, or even a weekly activity to keep their spirits up. Ask intentional questions. Don't just say, "How was the trip?" Say, "How are you feeling now that you're home?" Give them space to talk about that emotional dip. And remember, the joy of the trip doesn't have to end when the trip ends. Print out photos. Talk about the memories. Keep that warmth alive in everyday conversations. Because for seniors, connection isn't just a luxury, it's medicine. And post-trip depression can sneak in like a shadow if we're not paying attention. But here's the beautiful thing. Now that you know these risks, you have the power to prepare, protect, and bring even more meaning to the moments you share with them. So let's shift gears and talk about how to bring this all together emotionally, practically, and with heart. So let's take a breath for a moment. Think about everything we just talked about. Not to overwhelm you, not to scare you, but to remind you. This matters because watching someone you love grow older, travel less, move slower, it's not just a physical thing, it's emotional, it's complicated, and it's hard. You want them to feel alive. You want them to be a part of the world, not just sit in a room and stare at a clock. You want to say yes when they say, "I'd love to go see the kids." But deep down, you're scared. You're wondering, what if they get sick while we're away? What if I miss the signs? What if that one trip changes everything? That fear, it's not weakness, it's love. And the truth is, knowing the risk doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you powerful. Because now you can prepare, now you can protect, now you can make those trips safer, more meaningful, and far less risky. This isn't about telling your loved ones to stay home and never explore again. It's about reframing the journey. Because growing older doesn't mean shrinking into silence. It means being intentional. It means honoring the body's limits while still celebrating life. So instead of thinking, what if something goes wrong? Let's start asking, what can I do to make sure everything goes right? Know the warning signs. Build in rest. Make post-trip care just as important as the itinerary. And most importantly, stay present. Watch closely, love deeply. Because when you do, you're not just creating memories. You're creating safety, trust, dignity, and that's what truly matters in these later chapters of life. And if you're still with me right now, it means you care. So don't stop here. Let's bring this home with a quick recap and something you can do today to make a difference. So let's quickly go over the 5 hidden risks we explored today. Because these are the things that don't get talked about enough, but can make all the difference when it comes to senior travel. First, blood clots from prolonged sitting. It's not about how long the trip is, it's about how little movement happens during it. Short rides can be just as risky as long flights if the body stays still. Second, emotional disorientation and homesickness. When seniors are taken out of their familiar environment, even the happiest trip can trigger confusion or anxiety. Routine isn't just comfort, it's grounding. Third, sleep disruption and circadian confusion. Sleep gets more delicate with age, and travel throws it off even more. One bad night can spiral into days of fatigue, mood swings, or memory lapses. Fourth, masked medical emergencies. Heart attacks and strokes don't always look the same in seniors. A little pressure, a little tiredness, it could be something serious. Don't ignore the quiet signs. And fifth, post-trip depression. The emotional dip that comes after a joyful journey is real. And if you're not looking for it, you might miss it entirely until it becomes something heavier. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these risks surprised you the most? Have you ever seen one of these play out in a loved one? Or maybe even in yourself? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and your story could help someone else wake up to something they haven't noticed yet. And if this video gave you new insight, if it made you feel seen, prepared, or just a little more confident, tap that like button. It lets YouTube know that this kind of content matters. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe. Here at ElderTalks Daily, we're building a space for people who care deeply, love fiercely, and want to grow older with grace, not fear. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Stay strong, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video.